Hey everybody, David Shapiro here for another video about natural language cognitive architecture. Today I've got kind of a special treat for you. This is a project that I started working on a while ago, but finally got back to. It is called a question generator. So why would you want to generate questions? Well, let me start by just kind of showing you where I started from. So I've got 55,000 contexts. And so a context, some of this is going to be from the movie database, movie dialogue database. Some of it is also going to be from Reddit. All of this data was available on Kaggle. There's a couple other sources that I got from, but most of it is from Kaggle. So these are open source data sets, and these are just different contexts, right? Okay, so I've got contexts. Why would you want to ask questions? So questions are really important because questions form the basis of pretty much all intelligence. And let me explain what I mean by that. So intelligence is, in part, the ability and the desire to understand. Well, in order to understand something, you need to ask questions about it. Now, for the most part, our questions are unarticulated. They're completely internal. They're not in words, but you still have a sense of curiosity, right? Our brains generate questions even if we don't speak them. And so those internal questions is what our sense of curiosity is. Our desire to understand, to take what we know about something and engage with a new situation, a new scenario, or a new context, and ask questions. So what I did was I took about 1,200 of these different contexts. I've got 55,000 to go from. And then what I did was I used GPT-3 DaVinci to generate questions. And so these questions can then be used for any number of things. If you're using this model, this fine-tuned model for a chatbot, just asking questions can be a tremendously valuable tool, right? So like, let's say you're having a discussion with someone about a project or a personal issue. Just the ability for something to ask intelligent questions is super valuable. So you could bake this directly into a chatbot, for instance. And then you have the ability to just ask questions and respond. So that's the simplest use. Another thing you can do is use those questions to feed them into a question answering tool, which QA is something else that I've been working on. It's a central question answering is a major part of NLCA, of natural language cognitive architecture. So that'll be one of the next things that I focus on is, okay, now that I can generate questions, next I've got to be able to answer questions, right? Anyways, so once you can ask the question, where do you send that question to? You can send it to a QA service. You can send it to a chat output. You can search the internet. You can use those questions to just search the internet because things like Google, with BERT built in, Google has a really good ability to answer questions. Now, one problem that I haven't worked out though is you see these questions without the context, they don't make much sense. What are the two types of analysis? Two types of analysis for what? So that's one thing that I haven't quite worked out is how to get the questions to actually have some of the context built in. So that's a little bit of a problem. Anyways, let's see. So covered the context, covered the questions. Oh yeah, let me just go through some of the files. Okay, so I've got the context stored here. I've got the questions stored here. Oh, and all this code is public now, by the way. And then I had some data prep scripts that I wrote to kind of format the context as you see them now. They came from different sources. Let's see, here's the raw data that I got. So it's all in there. I was trying another experiment where I was summarizing things, but I'm not as interested in summarization because everyone's doing summarization. I don't need to reinvent the wheel there. Let's see. Okay, so how did I generate the questions? I wrote a few different prompts, and really what I found was that this prompt was the best. All I did was I told GPT-3, I said, write a list of the most important and salient questions an observer would ask about the following passage. So this particular prompt was engineered over quite a few iterations. The reason that it says that an observer would ask, the reason that it has to say that is because without that context, GPT-3 would sometimes try and take part in the conversation. Like say, why are you doing this to me? And I'm like, no, you're not actually participating in this conversation. Let's look at this situation from a third-party perspective. So by using the word observer, I told GPT-3, I said, okay, what are the most important questions an observer would ask about this situation? And that generated very consistent question output. So this is how I generated the questions. So basically all I did was I took those contexts. So for instance, that news article context, whoops, where did it go? I can't click on it because the recorder is behind it. Anyways, so I asked I transposed the text section here with any number of contexts, whether it was dialogue, news, Reddit posts, so on and so forth. And then I said, generate, spit out some questions. And then it spit out some questions. And I showed the example right here. So this is the output. This is an example of the output from Reddit. Or sorry, not Reddit, from GPT-3. I did a little bit of cleanup. You notice that there's no numbering or anything. There is some inconsistency. You see how the first questions, they're not capitalized. That's okay. It's not a big deal. This looks like it was a technical question about virtual machines and Linux and authentication. So that's cool. That also shows that GPT-3 has a tremendous amount of knowledge. It knows about tech support questions. So anyways, just by asking the right questions, you can get a tremendous amount of value. And then what you do with those questions is up to you. I've got everything documented. Let me show you. So here's the repo. You can come right here. You can clone it yourself. I've got all the information here. At the very top of the README, I kind of have an explanation as to what you do with this. Oh, most important thing, duh. The training data is right here. It's ready to go. It's 2.2 megabytes. It's what's called JSON-L, which means JSON lines. It's just JSON, but instead of being formatted as a list, you assume that it's a list. Let me show you what that means. So just edit with Notepad. So you see every line has one prompt and one completion, and that's it. So it's just a key value pair, two key value pairs. And that is how it knows how the training data is used. Let's see. I also wrote a quick script called finetune.py that just has a couple of helper functions. Let's see. So I wrote a thing to help upload the file, list the file. For the purpose, you just put in fine-tune. Let's see. Fine-tune the model, list your fine-tunes, show the fine-tune events, and get your fine-tune model. Again, just a couple of quick helper functions. The training data is right here. It's ready to go. You can use it. Just clone it down, and you're ready to go. I've got a little tutorial right here. The only thing that you need to make sure you do is add let's see, where is it? OpenAI API key.txt. Put your key in there. All of my scripts use that, and it's added to the git ignore, so it won't clone up to the repo. Let's see. I know I'm going super fast. Oh yeah. So finally, here's an example. I wrote this tiny little context. You can imagine this going to a group chat, right? I kind of adopted the persona of like a teenage girl asking for help on the internet. So this is, it's 2 sentences, and this was the output that the fine-tuned model generated. So it generated 12.5 questions about this situation. And you can imagine that these questions, for any number of people, whether you're trying to help this girl understand, or you're her friend, or maybe you're a parent and you don't know the whole situation, or if you're an AGI agent and you have a record of text messages with this girl, right? You could then use these questions to search those text messages to then create a better response and have a more human-like conversation. So anyways, there's a lot of things that you can use a question generator for. And I hope that you find some use in it. And yeah, that's about it. Enjoy.